Clark backing up and dropping a three. Little rookie out of Australia. Here is Clark. Oh, yeah!
Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. Man, I don't even know where to start with this game because that might genuinely have been one of the most frustrating coaching performances I've watched in a long time, seriously. This game felt like it was Caitlyn Clark versus everybody. It felt like Caitlyn Clark versus the Washington Mystics, versus her own teammates at times, and honestly, versus her own coaching staff too. Now, before people say I'm just hating on everybody, let me give credit where credit is due. Lexi Hull deserves props because even though defensively she was struggling all night, at least she competed, at least she fought. Lexi Hull hit some massive shots in this game, huge shots, momentum-changing shots. She looked like one of the only players on the floor actually trying to match Caitlyn Clark's intensity. And I also want to give Myisha Hines-Allen credit, because she battled too. She fought inside, played physical, and honestly, right now, she might be the best healthy big the Fever have. And that right there is part of the problem. Because Aaliyah Boston is clearly not healthy. I don't care what anybody says. I know the Fever medical staff keeps acting like everything is fine, but no, Aaliyah Boston does not look right. She looks limited physically, she doesn't have the same movement, and it changes everything for this team, defensively and offensively. When Aaliyah Boston isn't fully healthy, the Fever suddenly become tiny, slow, and extremely vulnerable inside. And shout out to the Mystics because they took advantage of it immediately. Kiki Ariafen was just too big, too physical, too strong around the rim. There were moments where Indiana simply had no answer for her. And then you add in players like Shatorty Walker-Kimbrough, Shea Petty, and Victoria Vivians making hustle plays, hitting shots, and playing smart basketball. That's a problem. Meanwhile, the Fever had players out there doing absolutely nothing. Tyasha Harris gave them almost nothing impactful. Damiris Dantas looked completely lost at times. And look, I'm trying not to overreact, but there were multiple possessions where Damiris Dantas directly contributed to turnovers because she simply could not catch the basketball. There were passes from Caitlyn Clark hitting players directly in the hands and somehow ending up as turnovers. That matters because people look at the box score later and blame Caitlyn Clark for mistakes that were not even her fault. And then we gotta talk about Kelsey Mitchell. This might honestly have been one of the worst games I've ever seen from Kelsey Mitchell. I'm serious. Missing wide open layups, missing transition opportunities, missing clutch opportunities late. There was a moment in overtime where Kelsey Mitchell misses a wide open layup that could have given Indiana the lead, and then immediately the Mystics come back and stretch the game to a 4-point difference. Those are massive momentum swings. And what makes it worse is the Fever kept forcing the offense through her late in the game after Caitlyn Clark had already completely taken over. That's the thing that drives me insane here. Caitlyn Clark had one of the best performances of her entire career tonight. I don't care what the shooting percentage says. I don't care that she went 10 for 28. I genuinely do not care, because context matters. Through 3 quarters, she was struggling with the shot, yes. But in the 4th quarter, Caitlyn Clark absolutely exploded. She had 17 points in the 4th quarter alone, while bringing the Fever back from a 14-point deficit. 14 points! Most teams fold in that situation. Most players stop shooting when they're struggling early. Caitlyn Clark did the opposite. She said, "I'm not backing down." She kept attacking. She kept firing. She kept creating offense. She hit the massive game-tying shot to force overtime. And honestly, that's superstar mentality. That's what elite players do. They don't hide when the percentages look ugly. They don't disappear because social media might criticize them later. Caitlyn Clark kept playing basketball. She kept competing. She kept believing she could drag this team back into the game almost by herself. And honestly, she almost did. Which is why the coaching decisions make even less sense. The Fever were up big early. Caitlyn Clark had rhythm. She was controlling the game. Then, suddenly, she gets pulled for an extended stretch, and the entire offense collapses. Completely collapses. I do not understand this obsession with sitting a rhythm player for huge stretches of time. Caitlyn Clark is not the type of player you park on the bench for 7 straight minutes while the opposing team goes on a run. If she needs rest, give her a minute. Use timeouts smarter. Rotate her around quarter breaks. But when Caitlyn Clark sits for long stretches, the entire structure of Indiana's offense disappears. And the numbers prove it. The Fever lost the non-Caitlyn Clark minutes badly. When Caitlyn Clark was off the floor, Indiana got destroyed. She finished plus 14 in a game they lost by 2 points. Think about how insane that is. In the limited minutes she sat, the team completely fell apart. That tells you everything you need to know about how dependent this roster is on her creation ability. Because right now, Caitlyn Clark is the only player consistently generating offense for others. She creates the open shots, she creates the spacing, she creates the transition opportunities, she creates the pace. Without her, this offense becomes isolation basketball and chaos. And look, this is not me saying Caitlyn Clark played perfectly. She didn't. She forced some shots, she had turnovers, but again, context matters. One turnover literally came because Kelsey Mitchell tripped over her own feet and knocked the ball out of bounds after a pass. Another couple turnovers happened because players failed to handle catchable passes. Yet the box score still punishes Caitlyn Clark for it. That's why watching games matters more than reading stat sheets. And even with all of that, Caitlyn Clark still finished with 32 points and 8 assists after the stat corrections. That's ridiculous considering how poorly the game started for her shooting-wise. Now, on the other side, you absolutely have to give credit to Sonia Caitiln, because if we're talking strictly about the winning side, she was phenomenal. She made huge plays, controlled important stretches, and ultimately helped secure the win. If Indiana wins this game, everybody's talking about Caitlyn Clark, but because the Mystics won, Sonia Caitiln deserves her flowers too. Still, the larger issue here is the Fever themselves. This roster construction is rough. No elite perimeter defense, not enough size, inconsistent shooting, not enough secondary playmaking, too much stagnant isolation offense. And here's the craziest stat of all. Kelsey Mitchell has now gone multiple games without recording an assist or rebound. Think about that. 70 minutes of basketball without an assist or rebound. That's insane for a high-usage guard playing heavy minutes, especially on a team that desperately needs more creation outside of Caitlyn Clark. And the scariest thing? When the Fever ran lineups without Caitlyn Clark, they looked completely lost offensively. There were even stretches involving Raven Johnson where Indiana simply could not create anything. Raven Johnson is a solid defender, sure, but offensively, she doesn't pressure defenses or create opportunities for teammates consistently. Everything comes back to Caitlyn Clark. Everything. And honestly, despite the loss, there's one positive takeaway. This game proved something important. It proved the Fever need to fully commit to running the offense through Caitlyn Clark at all times. That does not mean she needs to take 30 shots every night. It does not mean every possession should end with her forcing something, but the offense has to flow through her decision-making. Because when the ball moves through Caitlyn Clark, the team has structure. When the ball moves through Caitlyn Clark, teammates get easier shots. When the ball moves through Caitlyn Clark, Indiana actually looks dangerous offensively. But when the offense turns into endless Kelsey Mitchell isolation possessions, everything slows down. Everybody stands still, and the team becomes predictable. And honestly, last year's playoff run may have convinced the organization that style works consistently when it really doesn't. This team has evolved. Caitlyn Clark is the engine now. She is the system now. And the faster Indiana fully accepts that reality, the better this team is going to become moving forward. Because what we watched tonight was Caitlyn Clark nearly dragging a flawed roster to victory through pure willpower alone. And honestly, that performance deserves respect. Anyway, guys, let me know what you think down in the comments below. Do you agree with me about the coaching? Do you think the Indiana Fever need to fully run through Caitlyn Clark moving forward? And what did you think about Kelsey Mitchell's performance late in the game? Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.